The minds behind Rare were, and still are, a rare group of game developers. Donkey Kong Country blew people away with its fantastic graphics, and they are still quite beautiful even today. Banjo-Kazooie was praised by people everywhere, and I know quite a few people who still replay the game every year, myself included. So when I heard that the team was getting back together as Playtonic Games to create a new game, I couldn't help but get excited. And that excitement has only grown after the launch of the Yooka-Laylee Kickstarter campaign. And I'm sure that many of you have backed the game already, and if not, the link is in the description. The Playtonic Games team was nice enough to agree to an interview, and if you're listening guys, thank you so much. So for the next half hour, we're going to be discussing Yooka-Laylee, Project Dream, Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, and so much more. So without further ado, let's begin. So first, please introduce yourselves to the audience.
Hello, I'm Gavin. I'm the creative director at Playtonic and I'm keeping everyone together.
Hello, I'm Chris Sutherland. I'm the project director at Playtonic Games. I'm also doing engineering as well.
Hello, I'm Jens. I'm technical director.
Hello, I'm Steve, character art director, and happy to be doing character animation again after a few years off.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Steve Hurst, and I'm the environment art director.
And the killer of the frame rate.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Mark, and I'm the technical art director, whatever that means.
We haven't figured that out yet.
So how does it feel to be creating another 3D platformer as a team, just like the good old days?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. We really enjoy it because we love this type of game, and we've always said it's great to make the type of game you love to play yourselves. So yeah, going back to it after all these years is fantastic for us, and just being like a really small and collaborative and creative-led team again. That's what I think. We've all gone shy. Come on.
I was cleared off though.
So what about the characters and that as well, Steve? Come on.
Yeah, it's just great to be able to be really creative again. I mean, always go back to say, like the old days, like the N64, but it was such a great time, and that's what we've managed to recreate at the moment. So that's fantastic.
I think it's great just to be able to sit there and throw ideas around the room and then try them out pretty quickly, and just that quick turnaround. It does bring us all back to the days from the past, I guess.
I think it feels a little ironic really, because we're like taking a step back in time, but to us it feels really fresh and invigorating.
Take a step back so we can move forward.
Now why do you call yourselves Playtonic Games?
So for about 4 years before we've been formed, I was always like trying to come up with a name that I thought, oh right, what would I call a future company? And then I just thought, hang on, I love games, I love making them, I love playing them, and the fact that platonic is a kind of love, and then there's the word play for gameplay, I thought I'll just combine the two, make it called Playtonic. So Playtonic Games is kind of a love for making and playing the games we're doing. And then it just so happened that if you split the word up again into play and tonic, then it kind of was like, oh wicked, you could have a drink about play. And so that's how like the logo came around as well. And then in future, if we ever want to start making drinks instead of games, we've already got a brand set up, Playtonics.
Diet version as well.
Yeah, Playtonic Light, Playtonic Diet, Playtonic Max.
So Yooka-Laylee is quite obviously based off of Banjo-Kazooie, so let's talk a bit about that. First off, between Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, which do you prefer?
Oh, that's like asking who your favourite child is. I'm going to say Kazooie because, I don't know, I just think it was so new at the time. I think Tooie was a fantastic game, but for me Kazooie was more of a pioneering game in the 3D collect-a-thon platformers. So yeah, I'm going to give it to Kazooie myself.
I think I'd say Banjo-Kazooie as well, because it was the first one that we created. So that was
You just copied my answer.
I just copied Gav's answer because that was the easy thing to do. But the next person to answer will give a really original answer.
Yes, my original answer is I prefer Kazooie as well, but this time it's because we sold twice as many copies of this series, so that's a better reason, I think.
Okay.
I think I'm not gonna rock the boat. I'm gonna say Kazooie as well. I'm afraid. I think it was just more of an adventure and something new that we were doing at the time. It was more of an excitement. Whereas Tui was more of a follow-up. We knew what we were doing, but the kind of excitement and the exploration that we were doing with the first game was far more exciting.
I'm going to say Kazooie as well. I didn't actually work on the game, but so I can say what I like. I enjoyed it. I've got a really short attention span, so I think it was just a really good, nice sized game for me as well.
What was your favourite one?
Me, personally, I really liked Banjo-Kazooie myself because, I don't know, it was my first game that I played in the series, so obviously there's a bit of nostalgia there. But, I don't know, it was just something about it. Plus, you know, on the Nintendo 64, Tui didn't exactly have the best frame rate of all.
That's Steve Hurst's fault.
Sorry.
But yeah, I really liked how fresh it was.
Yeah, I did. And Grunty rhymed in that one. She gave up rhyming in the second one, which I thought was a cop-out, so...
Yes.
That's another good answer, yeah. Grunty. It's Grunty's fault.
So about how many people were on the Banjo-Kazooie team?
I'd say it's been around 12, 13, 14. I mean, it kind of... Some people were on for a little bit of time, and then some people came on towards the end. So about that number.
Now, are you looking to get that same amount for Yooka-Laylee?
Yes, that's about the same number we're looking at. I mean, the other thing to take account of is these days we've got tools like Unity, which mean that things that would have taken basically a full-time job for one person, some things are almost done for you. If you started from scratch back 10 years ago, you'd have to build an engine that would take 2 years, whereas nowadays you can kind of skip that part and you can basically be making gameplay from day zero.
So how difficult was it to create Banjo-Kazooie?
I'd say that at the time it was all new territory to us, so that was the whole idea of navigating a 3D environment, how you handle something like a 3D camera. There's all sorts of questions there where you're kind of breaking new ground, and you have to ask yourself, well, is it going to be annoying if we do this or this or this? And you kind of have to kind of feel your way on that. And even things like having an analog stick and all that kind of stuff you're all creating that from scratch, and you're kind of feeling your way through. So it was difficult in that respect. So I think, but at the same time, we didn't think of it as a difficult thing. We just thought best get on and get it done. Really, I think that was our attitude to it.
Now, I would definitely assume that it's going to be easier nowadays to create Yooka-Laylee than it was to create Banjo-Kazooie.
In part, yeah, I think so, because you already know what certain things work and they're established. But the difficulty then comes in, actually, you've still got to surprise and do things that players aren't expecting. You've still got to push your own boundaries. So that's what we're trying to inject into Yooka-Laylee, is making sure that we've got plenty of content and the well-known features and sub-features. We want to make sure that actually there's new twists on them, so people can't ever feel too comfortable and we don't want the game at all to be predictable. So it's still got its own challenges in that regard, but it's nice that we don't have to think, bloody hell, how do you do a 3D camera again, or the character control. It was great. We just turned around, and after about a few hours, Chris, even though it was just a cube, he had an amazingly controlled cube running around in a Unity scene 2 hours into the company being started, which was fantastic to see.
So is there anything you wish you would have added to Banjo-Kazooie?
Does this include Tui as well, or just...
Oh, sure. Why not?
I think they wanted to add vehicles, but
I think we should have.
They were ahead of their
I think
time.
we should have added a chameleon and a bat. That thought only occurred to me recently.
Nice. I remember on Tui, early on, we did have Bottle's Revenge mode up and running.
Oh, yeah.
And that got pulled for performance reasons, I believe. But I remember when we were QAing it at the time, we were already we were having fun with it, because you were going around controlling Bottle's ghost, and he'd take control of a nearby enemy, and then the player had control over that enemy, and they could try and make life difficult for their friend. But also, if you wanted to, you could turn that enemy into kind of an ally and not attack your friend and help them out. So it would have been nice to have a kind of a friendly co-op mode back in Banjo-Kazooie or Tooie, I think, because so many people got in touch and let us know that when they were playing the Kazooie and Tooie, it was actually, even though it was a single player game, they were playing with other people around the screen because it was kind of a nice game to watch and be involved in. So I think it would have been nice to involve other people in the room as well to take advantage of them being there.
Speaking of Bottle's Revenge, if I remember correctly, you can actually hack the game and be able to play it like today.
I think I saw that. I think somebody had created a hack where they'd enabled the feature. So I guess we must have left the code in there, and it probably does work to an extent, but it was never fully tested, so I guess it won't be something you can play through the entire game.
I remember as testers we were dragging enemies off all over the map and throwing them, walking them to all different areas, and the game kept crashing and locking up. And I feel kind of guilty in that. Part of me wonders if the testers hadn't have, really battered that mode so hard, then maybe people would have persevered and tried to deliver it in the final game.
So you are entirely responsible for the lack of that feature appearing.
I feel possibly partially responsible, possibly, but hopefully I'll.
I think that's the headline.
Yeah, hopefully I'll make up for it with this game.
Now, are you planning on adding any things you discussed in Yooka-Laylee? Like the local co-op, vehicles, or even things like Bottle's Revenge? Are you planning on adding them into Yooka-Laylee?
Yeah, we've got plans for a local co-op. I myself, when I played through Kazooie, did so with friends at the time, and it's something that in the time since we last developed games in this genre, up until now, it's one of the areas I've always had a lot of thought on and thought, yeah, it would be nice to do that. So, yeah, having some kind of buddy co-op mode in there would be good, especially in the case of, I guess, gamers of a certain age might have families now too. So if one person can be in the driving seat, so to speak, and they also have a co-pilot sat with them going through the experience, I'd like to take advantage of that. And I'd like to kind of add a nice local multiplayer mode as well. I love local multiplayer. I think they're some of the best experiences where you have multiple people around one screen, whether it's Bomberman or Mario Kart or Smash Brothers. They're just so much fun. So we'll do that. We're not going to have, not really going to have vehicles in this game. We're going to bring transformations back, but we're hoping the transformations will cover a wide variety of different things that we hope will surprise people, and that'll have some fun for that. And minecarts as well. I guess they're kind of vehicles, but that's the closest we'll ever go. Certainly no building and customizing vehicles for this one.
Speaking of minecarts, that reminds me a lot of Donkey Kong 64. Is that what you were going for?
Kind of, yeah. So I love those sections in DK64. I loved them in 2D as well in Donkey Kong Country, and the kind of pseudo 2D in Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, those levels as well. I think they're really fun, and although they're nostalgic, you can still do some fun things with them today. So we are going to bring back minecarts. However, not necessarily we're going to be limited to doing them just one way, and that's the only thing I'll say on that.
Now, speaking of Donkey Kong 64, I've been wanting to ask this question for a while. Some people say that Donkey Kong 64 was one of the reasons that collect-a-thon platformers basically fell out of style and stopped being developed. Would you agree with that?
I'd like to give two answers. One would like to say yes, and let's all blame Mark right now, and it's his fault. But I don't think so. But I'll let Mark answer because he was the lead artist on that game.
I'm going to have to say no, of course, aren't I? I think like all game genres, they go through cycles. They're successful, everybody starts making them, and the kind of market gets saturated as well. And everybody's trying to outdo each other, so you kind of reach that point with like Donkey Kong 64. And people maybe don't know where to go at that point. And then you get new generations of hardware, so it becomes like a time to bring genres back to life. And we see loads of genres really that have suffered from that over time. We've recently seen a revival of the Guitar Hero style stuff after a 5-year break. I think the problem is that 3D platformers have just been away for a bit too long.
Well, just so you know, I really like Donkey Kong 64.
Oh, thank you.
Hooray! I had to test that game, and I had to play 101% it every day for like a month. So yeah, I'm kind of numb to it a bit. But yeah, certainly I remember when we first got hands on it in testing, we all loved it at the time.
So let's get back to Yooka-Laylee. Why did you choose Kickstarter to fund the game?
Well, it come about by unintentional reasons to begin with. We didn't need the Kickstarter funding. We were happy just to be back together, and we had an original business plan where we had some private investment in place, and we'd get the game done that way. And then when we saw the response we got, and people kept getting in touch and saying, "Oh, I hope you guys do the best you can, and if you were on Kickstarter, I'd back you." And it kind of like got us thinking that, well, if it means we can do an even bigger and better game and reach all the platforms simultaneously rather than just have to release it, the first iteration of the game once and then port it to other platforms in turn, we thought then why not? It'd be kind of nice to do. And ultimately, it's a decision led by feedback from the fans. So yeah, doing it. We've not looked back since, but certainly glad we've gone this way because it's enabled us to make even more game content than what we were originally planning. And like I say, to get it on platforms on day one for everyone is a dream come true, really.
Now, the last time I looked at your campaign, it's going quite well. I think it's raised well over $2 million. Did you ever have any doubts that it would succeed?
I don't know, really. It's odd. You never can. I find the whole Kickstarter thing unpredictable. I mean, I've backed projects in the past myself, thinking, oh yeah, this project's a shoo-in. I love it. Surely everyone else does, and they don't. And then sometimes you back something and it goes nuts. I mean, I remember back in Hyper Light Drifter, and I was like, that didn't surprise me at all that it did really well. So I find it really unpredictable. You always think, well, we're going in with a low amount just to kind of show people that we're not reliant on the Kickstarter money, and you never know if all the fans that are encouraging you are going to back it in that way. So it still was a really nice, pleasant surprise and really humbling experience to see it go the way it did.
So I've been wondering, kind of for my clarification, Laylee is a bat. Is Yooka a chameleon?
Yes, that's right. I'll make Steve, Yuka's dad, explain more.
Yes, definitely a chameleon. I suppose we should have some fancy type of chameleon and fancy type of bat, but we haven't really got to that stage yet. Like Banjo was a honey bear and Kazooie was a red crystal eagle, but I think that was like added in towards the end of Banjo's development anyway. So yeah, we need some fancier names rather than bat and chameleon, that's for sure.
So why did you decide these animals?
Oh, yeah, it was all about the abilities and the gameplay opportunities that they'd create. We know we wanted to put more thought into it this time around. As much as we love Banjo, as a bear, he was actually more like a human in a bear costume. He didn't do anything which demonstrated typical bear traits, or he never had a salmon catching move using just his mouth. So we this time around we thought, no, we want to think about more the different types of gameplay we want to achieve, more open-ended gameplay, less linear, and have moves that you could trigger certain moves and the effects of them still be active whilst you trigger other moves as well to create all new different effects. So yeah, the chameleon was perfect for that.
So are you planning on trying to differentiate Yooka-Laylee from Banjo-Kazooie?
Definitely, yeah. I think initially it gives everyone a good starting point to comprehend the type of game we're making. But it's been a good 10, 15 years almost since we last made a game in this genre. There's been big advancements in technology. We now want to make sure that all the old conventions are done on an all new scale and improved, and want to do things like so baddies before, they were kind of just token distractions who got in the way. This time around we want to make sure they feel a lot more like they live and belong in the world, and they're working together to stop you, and there might be some group behaviourisms in there, and so they'll feel very different from before. We're really making the game less linear as well, so you can unlock worlds the same as you used to in Banjo-Kazooie, in turn, but you can also go back to previous worlds and expand them. And there'll be a lot more to do on earlier worlds with the moves you learn later on. Whereas in a Banjo game and even in a Zelda game, what the abilities and items you grab later on, they're kind of only used towards the end of the game on those levels. And I always thought that was a shame, because there'd clearly be some fun gameplay opportunities to take your later moves back to earlier levels and do new stuff with them. So yeah, we're hoping that come the end, people will see that there's kind of some of the Banjo DNA in there for sure, but the game will stand on its own 2 feet as well.
So are there any things that were in Banjo-Kazooie that you're going to be getting rid of in Yooka-Laylee?
Yeah, we've done a little bit of streamlining, I think, around the collectibles. In Banjo, every individual move kind of required its own collectible, be it red feathers, gold feathers, blue eggs, and then in 2E there was, I think, a further 5 egg types. So this time around, we think that the special moves will all share a common resource, and so that therefore limits how many more unnecessary collectibles there are to maintain. We don't want it to become like a resource management mini game within itself. So yeah, we're doing that, and we're thinking about how else the game will unlock moves, such as you'll have a bit more freedom once you've gone onto a level, and the moves that are available to unlock them in any order you want. So yeah, we're opening it up a bit.
Now, I remember when you first revealed Yooka-Laylee, it was called Project Yooka-Laylee. And I have to ask, did you get this name from Project Dream?
I guess maybe the subconsciously we thought back to things like Project Dream when we used the word project, but I think it was more there to kind of show that it was a code name and it wasn't going to be the final name, obviously, until we later decided it would be the final name. So yeah, there was probably a subconscious thing. I don't think we necessarily consciously thought of let's hark back to Dream.
Now, being the YouTube channel I am, did any of you work on Project Dream? And if you did, is there anything you could tell me that Grant Kirkhope hasn't already told everyone?
I think
unlikely.
that latter part's probably unlikely. So yeah, I worked on Project Dream, as did both Steve and both Steves. So yeah, I mean, we worked on that for about a year before it transformed into Banjo-Kazooie. I'm trying to think what we could tell you that I suppose, I don't know if this has necessarily been said anywhere, but when we started with Project Dream, we'd moved from Donkey Kong Country, and one of the things we were trying to do was get the same kind of visual qualities we had in Donkey Kong Country, but the issue we had is when we looked at the N64 hardware, good though it was for its time, you couldn't render things in 3D and still look at the same kind of high detail quality as you could on the Super Nintendo. So there's kind of it was an interesting challenge, because we're going to hire a more powerful machine, but the visuals, if we render them in the kind of the way they were supposed to be, like as 3D models, were going to look lower detail. So at first we thought that's why we took an approach which was more going for a kind of tile-based system where there was lots of flat pre-rendered images, and we tried to use that on a lot of the scenery. And we spent quite a long time, probably about a year, with that approach, and in the end we kind of switched to something more conventional, because although it looked great in a static view when you spun the camera around, because there's all the scenery was made out of these little flat 2D planes, it just didn't quite work. So yeah, that might be something nobody knows.
Something else I don't think Grant would have said was that every tune he's ever released since Dream was originally intended for Dream, although that might be exaggerating on my part.
It's definitely true.
I did a video on the development of Banjo-Kazooie, and have any of you watched it?
I think I've watched it. Is it start with Dream and then continue with all these secret areas and things like that?
Yeah, I was just wondering how close I actually was to the development story.
If it's the video I'm thinking of, then you were pretty close, to be honest. I was watching it thinking, oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that myself. It's quite enlightening for me, because most of it is lost in the midst of time. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty accurate, to be honest, the way it kind of transitioned from Dream to Banjo-Kazooie. So yeah, pretty spot on, I'd say.
Hey, thank you.
Well done.
That makes me feel a lot better.
Thank you for reminding me of my youth, anyway.
As a kind of a final question before we move on to the end, I guess. Of all the games you've worked on, which ones would you consider your favorite? You can give top 3, top anything, because I know how hard it is to pick a favorite.
I'll go first then. So, yeah, I agree. It's difficult to pick a favorite, and so my answer is usually to pick a different one every time I'm asked that question. So today's answer is going to be Donkey Kong Country, really because of just the amazing reaction it had. And we I remember flying over to CES, it was at the time, and we'd just been working so hard on the game. We didn't really kind of thought about what the reaction would be like. But then on the plane, we kind of took time to read some magazines, and we could see that there was other games with people saying, "Oh, this game's coming out, it's going to be amazing." And then we thought, "Wow, that looks good," but the thing that we're producing just seems like a level above that, and it wasn't kind of blowing our own trumpet. That just seemed to be the fact, and we just knew there was going to be a big reaction when we got there, and that was the case. And people thought at the press conference that they were being shown, and they were showing the video of Donkey Kong Country, that they were being shown something of the next generation hardware, but it was actually on the SNES. So that's for that reason I picked that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go the same as well, I'm afraid. Just because, DKC just because it was such a big leap forward in graphics. It's the sort of thing that kind of it's like a once in a lifetime thing, really, as a game developer, being able to make that massive leap. And it was just such a magical project to work on. And the fact I guess it was a lot easier in those days to keep it a secret for like a whole year and then like unveil it to a wonderful response from everyone. That was fantastic.
I'm going to actually just pick 2, because I'm going to say Donkey Kong Country 2, which is the first game that I've worked on. And especially for me, just the fact that after seeing the reception that Donkey Kong Country got, to be actually working on a sequel to that game at Rare was something incredible. But I think in terms of an actual answer, I'd say Banjo-Kazooie, because I think it was a very, a very rare thing that we had such a team that worked so well together, and everything just seemed to gel with that game really well. And so I'd say that's probably the best thing I've worked on.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the flow on this one and say Donkey Kong Country. My reasons are that it was actually the very first game I worked on as well, so it was just kind of an amazing induction into Rare and game development.
For me, I'd have to say Jet Force Gemini, and it's kind of because it was the first game I ever worked on as well, but it's kind of also because it's just awesome. But being the first game I ever worked on, I was a tester at the time, and it was amazing for me. I was like this young 19-year-old kid, got in at Rare, dream come true, and to see how the game, right at the end of its development life, changed so rapidly, and how games were put together and how they evolved. I remember when I first started, it was the old character models, and some of the other environments were like half finished, and some environments there you didn't see that made it through to the final game. And it was amazing feeling having that insight onto how games are made from from the perspective of the developer as well. So yeah, it was a great experience for me. And then when the game came out as well, even though I tested it and played it to death, I still loved it. And I think that's a good thing. If you do play a game to death and you still love it, even though you've tested it, it must be a great game.
Cool. Thank you so much, you guys, for this.
No, thank you. It's been great.
Bye.
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 Bye.